The dental hygiene program at the Medical Education campus of the Northern Virginia Community College is dedicated to providing students with a comprehensive and cutting-edge education in dental health care. Rooted in a commitment to excellence, the program emphasizes hands-on training and embraces advancements in dental technology to prepare students for the evolving landscape of oral care. Exploring CEREC, which is the chairside economical restoration of aesthetic ceramics technology, marks a significant enhancement to the program. By incorporating CEREC into the curriculum, the dental hygiene program at the MEC ensures that students gain exposure to the latest advancements in dental technology. This not only enriches their educational experience, but also equips them with practical skills that are increasingly valued in the dental profession. Hi, my name is Dominique Brandon. I'm a dental hygiene student at Northern Virginia Community College, and I'll be walking you through the 5 steps and phases in the CEREC milling process from the perspective of a hygienist and an assistant. Follow me into the dental skills lab. I will introduce you to the key players in the 5 phases of the CEREC workflow, the prime scan, prime mill, and speed fire, in preparing a katana zirconia block, as it has a high mechanical strength and multi-layered structure that allows for the chairside fabrication of natural tooth-colored restorations without the need for additional sintering time. All right, so now that you've got your patient seated and you're figuring out what you're going to do for the day, you're going to go ahead and add the patient onto the software. So it's going to ask for their first name and their last name. So for today's purpose, we'll just use a test patient. And it's going to also ask for their date of birth. So I'm just going to change this to like a 1990 so it knows it's an adult patient. Typically, you don't necessarily always have to put in the patient ID, but it might make it easier later for you to find that patient's file later. And then the dentist's name. So whoever you're working for and under, you want to make sure that they are under the patient that you'll be working on. And then you're going to click Add Case at the bottom here. After setting up a new patient on the display screen, the CEREC software will automatically guide you to the administration phase. Here you are prompted to determine the restoration type, design mode, mill device, and even the position of the restoration within the odontogram. Once all of that is accurate, you're going to go ahead and press next, and it's going to take you to the acquisition phase. Now during this phase, this is basically the scanning. In the second phase, acquisition, here you will dive into scanning and acquiring image catalogs of both the maxillary and mandibular arch and the buccal image catalog. The software has algorithms for design metrics, which you are able to edit in the third model phase. Making sure not to miss any surfaces and to get them fully filled. And during this phase, it's also really important for your patient to have a very dry mouth. You can do that by either using your air water syringe, or you can take some gauze and dry the teeth if they can't withstand the air due to sensitivity. It's really important to have it dry just because the camera will pick up much better on the teeth and the anatomy if the tooth is dry. When you're scanning, just make sure not to look directly into the light. We don't want to damage the eyes. The buccal registration or the buccal bite. We're going to have the patient close like they normally would. Turn on the camera here. Now that the bite registration is done and we've scanned all arches that are involved, we're going to go ahead and go to the next step, which is the modeling step. And in the modeling step, this is where we're going to go ahead and create the margin for the crown or whatever restoration that you're doing, like a bridge. You'll basically be marking the outline of the restoration so that it ensures that it seats properly onto the prepped tooth. We've got our prepped tooth and we've got our margin that's outlining this prepped tooth here. And it looks to be pretty accurate. The dentist will always go in and ensure the accuracy of the margin. This is something that's still important for assistants to look into, just to ensure that everything is going to go smoothly for the rest of the design. And we'll just basically go around and around and around
around, and it'll actually only let you go so far magnetically, so you can double tap there to kind of give yourself a checkpoint and then complete the circle all the way around. And then the dentist will come in.
Hey Dominique, what do you have here?
So I've just completed the margin for the restoration.
Okay, let's take a look.
Okay.
Everything looks good, but if you can, we gotta edit that area here.
So bring this out a little bit more.
Give the go-ahead, then we can go ahead to the next phase. So, good work, thanks.
So now that the doctor has approved, we're going to go ahead to the next step, which is the design. So you can either press the design or the next arrow at the bottom. And as you can see, it's already fabricating a crown for us, but we don't want to just take this and run with it. We want to make sure that the occlusion still matches and that the crown is not too bulky or too small, things of that nature. So over on this corner of the screen, you'll see a lot of tools. You have your form tools, your move tools, just shape and things of that nature. So the one that I'll be focusing on for this particular crown, starting off is just the form tool, because with this tool you can add, you can remove, and you can smooth the crown down. So if I take away the upper jaw and I just have the tooth by itself, we can look at kind of where the tooth may or may not be hitting with regard to other teeth in the mouth and in the arch. So you can see here, if I put the lower jaw on, this is how the crown would come together with the patient's bite. And we just want to check to make sure that there is no part of the crown that's too high, because if it's too high, then they're going to have a problem with their occlusion. And if that's the case, then we would go ahead and start actually removing some of the restoration. So we can use this remove tool to kind of just actually take away some of the crown and the occlusion. But you don't want to remove too much because it still needs to be adequate to their bite. And after you do that, you can actually smooth it down. You can change the size of the remove tool or the add tool or the smooth tool and the strength as well to your liking. Here interproximally, you can see that there does need to be just a small adjustment made based off of the color scheme. Green means that it'll seat pretty well. It'll be a tight contact. But some dentists, depending on where you're at and which office you're in, they like you to remove even some of that green so that it's an even more comfortable fit. So I can just take that and boom. Now we can see that the contact isn't going to be tight on that side, and you can do the same thing on the other side. You can kind of just remove it as you please and add back if you've removed too much. Smooth it down if you need to, that sort of thing. Once everything looks like it's coming together the way it would for their natural tooth, you're going to go ahead and manufacture the crown. So, in the manufacturing phase, you want to make sure that the machine is connected to the prime mill and the correct one. So make sure that that is all set up. You have the right restoration type, and that you're choosing the right sort of speed. So fast, fine, or extra fine, depending on the material used. And sometimes you'll even be able to move the burr around, or I'm sorry, not the burr, the sprue. You'll be able to move the sprue around so it's not on a particular side of the crown. We're going to head over to the skills lab to make sure that the machine and the prime mill are on so that we can connect it and start the milling process.
Okay, so here we have the Katana zirconia block. And after we have scanned, we're going to go ahead and insert the block into the milling machine. So you can do that by taking the QR code of the block and scanning it on the camera from the machine itself. And once it picks up that code, we'll be able to take the screw and place it into the milling unit. So you're going to turn it all the way clockwise, and you're going to take this and wait until you hear a click. So the screw is all the way seated. That's the click. So the block is secured. And I'm gonna go ahead and close this. And we're gonna start the touch process so that I can calibrate. And this is where the milling happens. So we make sure everything lines up with the correct mill. All of the burrs have enough life. So there's 98% of this burr and 100% for the other burrs. So it will last through the restoration. We have the right material selected, the katana, zirconia crown. The speed fire is ready, the prime mill is ready. So theoretically, once we press start, this should start milling to this unit. And it says it's gonna take about 16 minutes. So after that phase is done, we'll be able to take it out and start working on it. Okay, so now that the restoration is done, before we proceed, I am wearing PPE because we are dealing with zirconia, and it's to protect yourself from any aerosols and dust particles and things of that nature. So now that the job is completed, we'll go ahead and open back up the milling unit, and we'll open up the door to the chamber, and we will unscrew the restoration. So we went clockwise to put it in, so we'll go counterclockwise to remove it, just to get it loose enough to remove the block. And there we go. And when you're handling zirconia, you have to be very, very careful because it's very sensitive and fragile. So you want to make sure that you don't drop it. But we'll go ahead and close this back up. And at this point, we can see that the restoration has been made. It is still attached to the block, so the next step is removing the block. And here's a close-up. Okay. So to remove the restoration from the block, you're gonna take a lab burr and you're gonna remove what we call the sprue from the block. So the last thing that you wanna do is basically snap this, because you could risk ruining the integrity of the restoration that you made. So you want to, if you're going to do that, you're gonna wanna just very carefully take it apart like that. And as you can see up close, it's very dusty, but there's still that sprue attachment there. So what we're gonna do is remove it with the lab burr. So to remove it, you're just gonna take the burr and smooth it down until it's no longer evident on the crown. Once we have our crown ready to go, we're gonna move it over to the kiln, and we're gonna take from this screen the patient that we had, and we're gonna go ahead and select the appropriate process to use. So there's several options. You have your pre-drying, your sintering, and then your pre-drying and sintering. And you're just gonna choose the one that's most appropriate for the material that you have selected. So for me, I'm just gonna go ahead and sinter it. It's already dried, so there's no need to do that. But what you're gonna see is you're gonna see the door come down, and it's gonna instruct you on how and what to do next as far as the kiln is concerned. So based off of the diagram, it's showing that they want you to flip the crown upside down and place it directly onto the foam pad. So we're gonna place it just like that. And then it says it's gonna take approximately 18.5 minutes. So at this point, we'll just go ahead and start it. And what this is doing is it's allowing the zirconia to expand into the correct material size for the patient. Because without this expansion, it's just not actually, the proportions are not correct right now. So this is allowing the proportions to eventually get to the point where they need to be. So this, again, is going to take about 18.5 minutes. And we just want to keep monitoring the machine during this process to ensure that there are no interruptions or complications during it. So now that the restoration is out of the kiln, just
be cautious because it is extremely hot. As you can still see, the temperature is around 900 degrees. So you do not want to touch this with your bare hands. And you actually want to use a pair of tweezers to carefully move this from the foam to the fan down here and just let it sit for a couple of minutes. So it's important to note that the reason why we chose to go straight into sintering this particular restoration as opposed to drying and then sintering is because during the manufacturing process, we actually did a dry run instead of a wet processing. So it didn't necessarily need to be dried before. For this purpose, we're gonna go ahead and finish the job. And this will allow it to continue to cool down and for the fan to continue to allow it to cool down. And once it's reached an optimal temperature where we can actually pick it up, that's when we're going to start polishing this restoration with a block that we got from the unit itself. So this is the burr block, and you have different options depending on the restoration and what you're doing. For this demonstration, I'll just be using a small disc to polish this, like so. It's the same disc that we used to actually remove the sprue, so we'll use this to polish as well. But there are other options that you can choose from. Okay, so now that the restoration is cool and to the touch, we're gonna go ahead and polish with a burr that we got from the same burr block that we used to remove the sprue. For this demonstration, I'm just gonna use a small disc and we'll polish the restoration all around, making sure to remove any scratches and fine lines and to make sure that the restoration looks nice and shiny. Once that is finished, it's actually ready for delivery. So this is ready to be cemented into the patient's mouth for the final fitting of the restoration. With other materials, there is an option. You can polish with the burrs like we've seen with the katana, but you can also use the universal spray glaze. So you can spray it onto the restoration. Just making sure not to use too much of it interproximally because it might actually add to the interproximal contact and then it, you might have to make an adjustment. But you can use the universal spray glaze, or there's actually different staining materials that you can paint onto the restoration as well, depending on the staining of the tooth and the color that you're going for. And at that point, you would actually re-center it and then take it out, cool it down, and then it'll be ready for delivery. There you have it. You've learned the essential steps for CEREC Technology. Whether you're a student, new graduate, or faculty member, this knowledge empowers you to excel in the field of dentistry. Thanks for watching and stay tuned for more informative videos.